the game.
Hey there, I'm Kelsey Dickey. What started as helping people with their money at my dining room table grew into a 7-figure financial coaching practice. Now I teach others how to build a thriving coaching business of their own. Whether you're just starting out or you've been coaching for years, I'm here to help you make a bigger impact while doing what you love. This is the Financial Coach Academy podcast. Let's dive in. Hey, Coach. Okay, back on episode 99, we talked about making that initial first impression with prospective clients. It was the first of our occasional series on delighting your clients. I shared what the touch points might be, how to personalize that connection, and even how to automate it. Now we're going to focus on that critical first paid session, how to really deliver value and make your clients feel seen, heard, and supported. But first, I want to say a big thank you to Robert Montgomery 8107, who commented on episode 91 on YouTube. Episode 91 was how to raise your financial coaching rates. Not only did he give us kudos on the equation I shared in the episode, he said, this equation is amazing and really put pricing into perspective. Thank you so much for what you're doing. But he also pointed out that I misspoke on what I shared in that episode. So thank you so much, Robert Montgomery, 8107. I am all for growing and learning, and I appreciate the correction. Head to that video on the YouTube channel for more details. As you listen to today's episode, I want you to think about the systems you have in your business. You might be thinking, this all sounds great, Kelsey, but I just don't have the time or the know-how to work on that first paid session. I spend too much time managing #all the things. Well, what if you could put parts of your coaching business on autopilot with systems that automatically nurture leads, support your clients, and keep everything running smoothly? That is exactly what our systems and automation coach, Erica, helps you create. In one 2-hour session, she'll map out your entire client journey and show you how to automate the routine tasks that are eating up your time. This is one area where you can't afford to skip. Find out more about how systems can help you at financialcoachacademy.com/systems. Again, that is financialcoachacademy.com/systems. If you have been listening to this podcast for a while, then you know how strongly I feel about not holding free discovery sessions. I am very much in the camp of paid discover calls. Mind you, I'm not talking about paid sales calls, but the first call where you truly give the client value in coaching and help them to realize results. I talk about this a lot in the Ultimate Growth Guide series of this podcast. I know it can feel nerve-wracking, that moment when someone has actually invested their money and trust in you, but hopefully it's also really exciting. Today, I want to talk about how we can make that first paid session not just good, but absolutely amazing for our clients. I remember my very first paid session as a coach. I was so nervous about delivering value that I could not sleep the night before. I kept thinking about all of the things that could go wrong. But here's what I've learned since then. That nervousness comes from a good place. It means we care about making a difference in our clients' lives. I want you to acknowledge it because that's the first step in learning how to better manage it. All too often, that nervousness is going to cause you to over-prepare coach, which then leads you to over-talking during the session because you have a desire to over-deliver, which then leads us to overwhelming the client. It took me a long time and a lot of trial and error to learn what really works when it comes to these first sessions. So I hope this episode speeds up your progress and your growth in this area. Here's the thing, coach. You're probably experiencing a bit of an emotional roller coaster, but I promise you, so is your client going into this session. So that's why, before we dive into the nuts and bolts, I want to talk about something really important. The emotional roller coaster your client is on when they show up for that first session. Think about this. They have just taken a huge step. They finally admitted they need help with their finances. They've paid money, which might feel scary when they're already worried about money, to talk to a stranger about something that might feel embarrassing or overwhelming to them. They're feeling vulnerable. They're feeling skeptical, probably. They don't know what to expect, so they're nervous. I had a client tell me once that he had such anxiety about looking at his bank account that he literally had PTSD symptoms when trying to complete the prep work. That's how deep some of this stuff goes. So your clients are probably feeling excited but terrified, hopeful but skeptical, brave but vulnerable, and ready for change but also scared of judgment. They're probably thinking things like, what if they tell me my situation is hopeless? What if I've wasted money on this session? Money that I really need? What if I'm too far gone to help? Or is he or she going to judge me? Are they going to think I'm ridiculous? Understanding this emotional state is crucial because it shapes everything about how we structure our first session. Oftentimes, we prepare by looking at their financial position and devising strategies or putting together some ideas or a plan to help them financially. But we don't give enough thought to how we can support how they're feeling. Whatever is going through your mind, I want you to imagine, coach, that your client is experiencing something 10 times greater. So I need you to get out of your head so that you can be more focused on them. So let's talk about these first few minutes of your session. This is where you'll set the tone for the session and potentially any future interactions that you have with the client. I've learned to start with what I call a warm welcome phase. This isn't about diving straight into finances. It's about helping them to feel comfortable and safe. Here's what this looks like in practice oftentimes. We keep this section brief. It's about 10 minutes or so. Show genuine excitement to work with them. And really, not hyped up excitement, but calm excitement. You know what to expect. Even if you're new and you sort of don't know what to expect, coach, I want you to have this vibe about you because your client needs to feel that from you. Take the lead right away. Then acknowledge their courage in taking this step. I know this can be a big step for people, or I know this can be a little nerve-wracking as our session gets closer. It's a courageous step to get an expert's perspective on any part of our life, especially our money. So I want to acknowledge that first. How are you feeling coming into today's session? You'll hear a variety of responses from, oh, I'm fine, this is no big deal, to I couldn't sleep last night. Maybe crack a gentle joke about those pre-session nerves if that's your style. Hopefully you can't sleep again tonight, but it's because of excitement. Nah, I'm just teasing. I hope you get some of the best sleep you've ever had in a while. Or I had one lady tell me that she bit her nails obsessively the day before. So you can say something like, oh, I'm glad to hear you didn't do that. I had this one client tell me that, right? This works great if you've got a woman who has a nicely manicured, nails or something like that. You can sort of mention that to her, right? If they were referred by someone that you know, that you have a mutual connection, this is also a really good time to mention that connection. But a point of caution here, I don't ask how they know that person because you can get a very long story here purely because of the nerves. So instead, I like to share my connection to the person instead. So, Susan, I've known her for years and she's really wonderful. I'll be sure to tell her that thank her for connecting us so that I could help you today. But I want you to know our conversation today is totally private and confidential, and all Susan will hear from me is a thank you, okay? That also can ease any concerns that they have that you're going to run and go tell this person how the session went, okay? All right. We're going to dive in, but first, I just wanted to check in on how you're feeling. Are you ready? This question helps to normalize their feelings right from the start, that you are checking in periodically throughout the entire session. We're not just going to focus on their finances. Next, we're going to move into setting clear expectations. One of the biggest mistakes I made early in my coaching career was trying to solve every single problem a client brought up in that first session. Talk about overwhelming, both for me and for the client. So here's how I structure expectations now. First, clearly state the session length up front. Usually our initial session are 2 hours and we just talked for a little bit. So I'll say something like, we've got about an hour and 50 minutes to help you see your money clearly and make progress towards your goals. Second, acknowledge that while we have limited time, we can make significant progress. I know that seems like a lot of time, but it's going to fly by. We'll use every bit of it. Third, clarify their top priority. We do ask clients in advance what their number one goal is or what they want out of the session. And although you might know the answer to this, you do want to discuss it here as well. So this could sound something like, one thing you mentioned you'd like to have a plan for, ... Or I know you mentioned that you'd like to talk about X, Y, or Z today. Right? So we'll definitely make that a priority during our time together. Does that still sound right to you? So you can really check in. You can reference the fact that you've already asked this question before. I'm not trying to repeat questions that you've already answered, but it is good to turn it into a discussion. It also gets the client sort of talking and a little warmed up. Another way to word this is, I've reviewed your prep work, but I'd love to hear in your own words, what's the most important thing you're hoping to get out of our time together today? Don't be afraid, like I was saying, to ask this question if you think you already know the answer to it. Not only could the answer have changed since they filled out the prep work, but the answer could stay the same. But I promise you, hearing them talk about it and how they express it can be incredibly insightful. Number 4, be honest about what we can realistically accomplish. Sometimes when we ask what a person's goals are or what they hope to gain from the session, they give you a laundry list of things. So this is where we want to be really clear. I know you mentioned, and then you list the things. We'll probably not have time to really investigate and strategize around each one of those today. So I can help you prioritize them, or if you know which ones are most important to you, we can certainly cater this session to the top 1 or 2 that are non-negotiable for you. This is an important step, coach. If they list multiple goals, and they sometimes do, I'll say something like, those are all important goals, and I can help you with each one. Today, we're going to focus on, chances are their top priority, so I would insert that here, and create a solid plan for that. The other goals you mentioned are perfect for us to work on in ongoing coaching if you choose to continue. In other words, someone with multiple needs and goals is a perfect client because they likely have a genuine need for more coaching. If you try and over-deliver in the first session, you're doing them a disservice by overwhelming them, and you're doing yourself and your business a disservice too. I'm going to say this whole thing again because I'm sure some of you need to hear it twice. Someone with multiple needs and goals is a perfect client because they likely have a genuine and sincere need for more coaching. If you try and over-deliver in that first session, you try and tackle every single one of those instead of simply setting an expectation that that's not possible or realistic, you're doing them a disservice by overwhelming them, and you are doing yourself and your business a disservice too. Lastly, and this is optional, I like to share a couple of things about myself and my philosophy here at the start of the meeting. I tell them I don't believe there's one right way to manage your money, and that my job is to help them find the way that will work best for them. I tell them I'm going to make some suggestions and recommendations, but that I want it to be collaborative. If I suggest an idea that you don't love, tell me. And if you have ideas about anything, I hope you'll share them with me. If you have any questions, please ask. If I need to clarify something, feel free to stop me. There are many ways to have success, and this is what I tell them. There's many ways to have success with your money, and I start with the strategies that I've seen work the best for a lot of our clients, but we can always adapt as needed. So we've set a warm and safe environment to start. Then we set clear expectations. Now we move on to demonstrating value through structure. Here's where we really get to shine as coaches. Remember, they've paid for this session, so we need to show them it was worth every penny. One way to think about this section is to break it down into smaller value blocks. So let me walk you through exactly how each one of these works. Value block 1 is the current picture, and this might look like about 15 to 20 minutes, although we got to be flexible. Think of this like an accordion. For some people, these blocks might be 5 minutes, and for another person, it might be 25, but you're going to ebb and flow between each of them. This is where we help clients truly see their financial situation, often for the first time. But here's the key. We are not just throwing numbers at them. We're helping them understand the story their money is telling. And we're not talking about changes here either, coach. We're simply summarizing to them what we're seeing so they can see it too. Here is the biggest piece of advice I can give you. You need to narrate out loud what your brain is likely doing naturally. And if you have over-prepared going into the session, all the review that your brain is doing during that phase when you're over-preparing is already done. So you're not taking the time to slowly explain it to the client. You're jumping multiple steps ahead, and they actually need to hear that process that you undertook. They need to have that narrated to them. Let me give you an example. I might say something like, your income is X per month, and your pay is pretty consistent, or it fluctuates, whatever the case may be. If they have a good income, I'll probably say that. You have a healthy income, that's great. It will certainly help you to achieve your goal of blank. Then I might say, let's go through some of your expenses and talk about some of them. Again, coach, I'm not making changes or saying do this or don't do this to any of these expenses yet. I'm more or less clarifying some things with them. Your car insurance is X per month. And do you pay that monthly or a couple of times each year? I am just trying to get them talking about their money, but in a not super overwhelming way. Then I'll talk about how that financial picture might feel to the client while summarizing it. Here we go. Here's an example. Your income each month is X, like I was saying, and it looks like your expenses are about Y per month. So that tells me it's tight. I imagine there are months where if a few of these one-time expenses all happen at once, you're really feeling the pinch and are probably resorting to your credit cards, or it probably feels like you have to scramble a little bit. Does that sound about right? Or here's another example. Your income is X per month, and it looks like your expenses are about Y per month. So I'm seeing a decent, healthy lifestyle with some discretionary income each month. I'm wondering if that feels right to you, or are you thinking, yeah, that can't possibly be the case? In other words, we're talking about money and how that shows up in their life simultaneously. Okay, so it's both how they're feeling it and the numbers. When reviewing their data, here's a few tips. Start with the big picture: total income, expenses, and any debt. If their cable bill is listed as $92 per month, but it's really $99 per month, I do not care during this session. Do not get too in the weeds, coach. That's a mistake that I see a lot of coaches make when they first start. Look for patterns in their spending that they might not have noticed, and use visuals, if possible. I love using Google Sheets for this because we can duplicate their numbers and show different scenarios. Most importantly, highlight what they're doing right. Maybe they're great at saving on groceries, or they've been consistent with their retirement contributions, or they have a healthy income, or their expenses come in less than their income every month. All of these are excellent things to point out. Remember, this isn't about making them feel bad about their situation or even recommending any changes at this point. It's about giving them clarity and showing them that you understand their full financial picture. I want them thinking here, she gets it. And yes, that's exactly what I have going on, as if I've just articulated it in a way that they were feeling, but maybe not able to describe. When it comes to delighting your clients, they will be delighted when they feel heard and seen, not when you tell them how to save $5. All right, the second phase is the possibility phase. And again, maybe this is about 10, 15, 20 minutes. This is where the magic starts to happen. Once we understand where they are, we can help them see what's possible. You'll sometimes hear this called the magic wand conversation by others, but we call it their vision for the future. In this block, we're focusing on what led them here. What was their primary reason they booked the session and asked for help? What current stressors would they love to alleviate or eliminate? What would they love to gain or have that they don't currently have? What do they want for their financial life? And why now? What's been stopping them from making this a reality? I'll usually ask something like, I'm curious, when you imagine your life without that vision or without these changes you just talked about, what would that mean for you? What is the impact if it doesn't change? Or where will you be a year from now if this doesn't change or if this progress doesn't happen? What will your life look like and how will you feel? You may know some of this based on the information you asked in the prep work that you sent. But we do want them talking about it. We want this to be a conversation. The energy they gain when talking about the future and the life they're creating is really important in this session. It is the why behind everything else you're going to discuss. So make sure they sense that and they know it. Everything from here in the session is because this goal that you've just got them talking about is important to them. The key here is to help them not just see the financial benefits, but how their life could be different. This isn't just about money. It's about what money can do for them. The third block is the strategy session, and I call this bridging the gap. This is definitely the biggest chunk of time during this session. This is where we roll up our sleeves and get into the practical steps. But first, we show them, based on your current finances, which we've already confirmed, right, in the first block, and what you want to achieve, which we discussed in the second block, here's what it would look like to achieve that. Here's what it would look like to bridge the gap between the two, either how long or how much money they could put toward that goal and all those types of things. But this is based on their current money without making any changes. So you are essentially painting a very clear picture of their before or the now. And then you can go into making changes or recommending shifts that they can make. You can say something like, let's see if we can't find more money, or let's see if we can't speed up your progress, or let's see if we can't make changes that better guarantee your outcome. One thing that I would love to recommend, and I think, this was talked about in the episode with Nora where she was talking about demonstrating your value and your authority. We oftentimes think in this session that it comes from us talking at the person. I want you to imagine that you are bringing them along as part of the process. So again, that wording is really important. Let's see if we can't find more money. Let's see if we can't find ways to speed up your progress. Let's see what changes we can uncover that could better guarantee your outcome. We are doing this together. It is collaborative. It is not me throwing these at you, okay? Chances are recommending changes is the part that you're already doing, coach, but you might be jumping right into it and skipping those initial phases that we talked about. Here's what I want you to know, and this took me a little while to learn, so grant yourself some grace if you are just now learning it as I talk about it. If you and the client aren't on the same page about where they are currently, and if you aren't on the same page about what the client wants and how that's different from what they currently have, this section where you're talking strategy doesn't exist. Another tough lesson learned for me: we can't solve every problem in one session. Instead, we need to focus on their biggest priority and solve it completely. And listen, some of you are going to hate me for saying this, but too bad. Here is a Kelsa soapbox for you. The biggest priority is whatever gets the client most excited to commit to changes. Is it the best one financially? Sometimes, but not always. But if it gets the client motivated and driven to commit to saving or budgeting or paying closer attention, let's go, right? That is where the magic happens. Stop telling your clients what their first priority should be and ask them what priority gets them most excited, and then see what happens to their debt. Go back to episode 22, and I think it's 23. I think it's a 2-part episode where I talk about coaching clients on their debt specifically. My kids are 8 and 9 years old, and they are both terrific savers. And I kid you not, I taught them how to save because they both wanted an expensive Lego set. One that was going to take them months of saving to be able to buy. That was years ago. I want to say they were 5 at the time. And now they save for things they want, but also for things, and this is exactly what they say. They say things they'll probably want someday. So they don't even know what it is. They just know that they need to be saving for their future. How awesome is that? Your job, coach, is to find your client's big Lego set. So in this phase, we start with their most pressing concern, and then we break it down into clear, manageable phases, not necessarily steps, coach. Help them see how they can go from where they are now to where they want to be, and that might look like some big, overarching phases instead of every small step they need to take. Address their specific challenges and obstacles. They may be frustrated if there's no extra to put towards goals, or maybe there is, but the timeline simply isn't good enough. They want to hit the goal faster or sooner. But keep in mind, they may also feel good because they can see why it's been a challenge. Talk through how this has been hard and you can see why they've been frustrated. Lead with compassion in this area. It is not our fault if it's a tough or tight situation. Actually, knowing that it's bad can be a liberating thing for the client and can move them from feeling like a victim into productive action. Purpose is to be able to communicate and show them a clear starting point. That is the purpose of this section. They may be excited if there's positive cash flow. Great. Then begin to dive into how they can ensure every month goes according to this plan so that that money can go towards their goals. Lead with excitement. This is where cash flow management comes in, because if we go straight into that without exploring why cash flow management is important, it just feels like we're giving them homework. So next, we can also provide practical solutions that fit their life. You can recommend some changes or suggestions or ideas, and then you can ask, and you can ask questions, ask for feedback. What do you think of this? Ask for their ideas. Really lean into some brainstorming here with the client. We don't and shouldn't be trying to give them every single goal and target and timeline for an entire year or more during this coaching session. Another key step to ensure that you are delighting the client is to not focus solely on financial changes, but the mental or emotional journey too. This is how you will grow and change in the process. Or these are some of the mental or emotional hurdles that we often face when we're trying to make changes and our progress gets stalled for these reasons. And mention some of those that might be relevant to the client. The key is to be specific and practical. No vague advice like spend less. We want clear, actionable steps and phases, but without getting so in the weeds that you've lost sight of the bigger picture. And the client is making decisions here too, coach. Yes, I'll cancel that. Or no, I want to keep that. No problem. And they can always change their mind later, but there are decisions being made here and now in the session. So this section, again, is about financial changes. It's also about mental, emotional changes and the awareness of the journey ahead. It's about practical changes described as phases or steps, while also keeping an eye on and continuously bringing it back to the big picture. After that block, we move into summarizing the implementation plan. This final block is crucial because it's where we transform our discussion into real-world action. If you end your coaching session with too much like steps without recapping it, the client has lost sight of how it's all connected. Okay? Think of this as creating their roadmap for success. There might have been a lot of brainstorming or idea sharing, so this is where we want to succinctly recap the session for them. Here's what we usually cover. Here's where you are. Here's what you want. Originally, it would have taken you X months to achieve, let's say, or however you can pinpoint where they were starting from. But by making the changes we discussed that will be outlined for you in the email you'll receive, you can achieve your goal by this date instead, right? Or again, whatever measurable you can provide. Some of the changes we talked about you making are, and then you could recap some of those. And again, keep these higher level. You don't need to relist every single one of them, along with any deadlines or priority order that might apply. Recap any potential obstacles that you guys talked about, and then end the summary with getting them thinking, describing, and feeling their goal again. Remember, this is their why. So this energy will be what fosters change in how you want them ending the session. One thing I've learned, don't overwhelm them with a huge to-do list. I'd rather give them 3 steps they'll actually complete than 10 that will overwhelm them. The value in what you provide does not come from more action steps, coach. Here's why this structure works so well. It takes them on a journey from understanding to action. We're not just giving advice. We're building their confidence and showing them exactly how to move forward. We want them to be able to see it and feel it. The beauty of these value blocks is that they build on each other. By the end of the session, your client should have a clear understanding of their current situation, excitement about what's possible, specific strategies to move forward, confidence in their ability to take action, because we didn't sugarcoat it. We told them what to expect when they make changes. All of these are really important changes to the session. Remember, we're not just giving advice, we're building confidence and hope. And that's what makes our discovery sessions truly transformative. I want to highlight one more really important aspect of the discovery session that I promise you, I got so wrong at first. And I know so many coaches are missing this too. What I'm about to describe is most likely why your discovery sessions aren't converting into long-term clients. The way we communicate during this session isn't just about being nice. It's about creating an environment where real transformation can happen. If we make it sound too easy, we are setting them up for failure because when it gets hard, they'll think they're doing something wrong and abandon the plan. If we try to give them too much because we think that's how we earn our value, we overwhelm them and they cannot take action when they're overwhelmed. Yet if we only share despair and hopelessness for their situation, they will think change doesn't matter because there's just no point. If we only talk about money and numbers, we are completely missing the mark on how money is impacting them every damn day of their life. And yet, if we are only talking about their mindset or feelings, then we're not giving them practical steps to improve their situation. My clients end a discovery session, and I want them saying the following: she gets me. She totally sees what I've been experiencing. She was honest with me about where I stand and what this will take. I am excited about my goal, and I can see it clearly now. I know what I have to do to make my goal a reality. I believe it's possible even if it's hard. I'm ready. and I have someone in my corner who can guide me through this. I know this all sounds like a delicate dance that I am describing, Coach, and it is. But you know what? Our clients deserve this level of value from us. I know that this is the art of financial coaching that I personally feel I bring to this profession. This is why my clients get such great results and they enjoy the journey at the same time. This dance is what I obsess over and what I have as the standard for coaching on my team. In a future episode, I'm going to share some specific examples around the language we use during the coaching sessions that can absolutely help you here. Let's now talk about following up and next steps. The session isn't over when they walk out the door or log off Zoom. In fact, what happens after the session is just as important as the session itself. Let me walk you through our follow-up system and why each piece matters. First, same-day follow-up. This is important because the energy and motivation from the session is still fresh. So I'll send something like a detailed summary email. We recap their current financial position, list specific steps we discussed, include any spreadsheets or tools that we created together, share links to any resources that we talked about. Now, I want to be clear here. We don't create anything new for this. When we are meeting with the client, we are typing in their financial worksheet during the session, and that's what we send them. Now, there is a separate section on it where it's all summarized, and that's where we're typing. So we might add some notes because we don't always have time to elaborate. We might use a little bit of shorthand during the session, so we just need to explain it a little better. So there's definitely some updates that we're doing after the session, but we're not spending hours typing up a bunch of notes or essentially recapping the entire coaching session, okay? We also send their personal action plan. And like I said, this is summarized on a tab on their financial worksheet. So you can break this down into clear, manageable chunks if you want, such as this week, next week, end of month, for example, or phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. We also have a section that says pitfalls to avoid or red flags to look out for, specific steps to focus on that are specific to their goals, and what's next. Things that we still need to look at, or that things that we didn't get to that we do need to figure out. Because again, we cannot solve all of their financial problems in one session. Lastly, a personal note. This is where I reinforce their potential. We often write something like, I'm really excited about the plan we created today. This is your custom plan for your money that has been created with you and your unique goals in mind. Remember, you don't have to do this perfectly. You just need to take those first steps that we talked about. It's this section in our email is typically longer than what I just described, but you get the idea. It's sort of that tone, okay? Now, you can also provide, in addition to that, a next day follow-up. You can, include technical support. So, hey, I just wanted to make sure you can access all of your resources. Some emotional support, so acknowledge that changes can feel overwhelming, remind them of their why, and provide next steps. If they didn't move forward with more coaching at the end of the session, this is a great time to reiterate that helping people make consistent and successful progress toward their goals is what we do, and we would love to help them with that. You can also check in a week later, for example. This is when oftentimes reality has set in and they might be facing challenges or they've already noticed their procrastination. Here's how I structure this contact. First, celebration. Acknowledge any steps that they have taken, no matter how small. Reinforce that progress is not linear and share similar challenges that other clients have overcome. I also do some problem-solving support. I remind them about specific obstacles they may be facing. It's normal for people to blank, right? Now, big key here, coach. Do not provide additional coaching by way of steps or solutions. You're reinforcing what you previously discussed, not adding more. The next steps is where I make a clear recommendation. We can clarify our offer or any parts of that offer on how we can support them in taking action, working their plan, why we really think we could help them and what exactly we could help them with. And I explain how ongoing coaching could help, either by helping them with what was already discussed or by figuring out what's next for them if they are moving and shaking. So again, this is a brief email or reach out. So maybe 1 or 2 sentences of each of the above things that I just outlined. You're asking a question. Are you feeling excited about achieving blank? And then making a comment. And that might be something like, I noticed that you lit up when you were talking about that during our session. Okay. So again, somewhat brief email. And then that leads us to the on-track call. For clients who don't move straight into ongoing coaching, I schedule what we call an on-track call, usually 3 to 4 weeks after the discovery session. This 15-minute check-in serves several purposes. One, it provides closure to their initial session. It helps them feel supported even if they're not ready for more coaching. And it gives us a chance to discuss ongoing coaching if they're struggling. And then lastly, it creates an opportunity for testimonials and referrals if they're succeeding, or no matter what. Really, we always let them know if we're taking on new clients or that we love helping people just like them and that we're here. And if they know anybody who could use our help, to please keep us in mind. The key with this call is to keep it focused. It's not another coaching session. Just like I said, it's a checkpoint to either celebrate their progress and get a testimonial, help them see where ongoing support could be valuable for them, or provide a clear conclusion to working together. Remember, your follow-up system needs to be both systematic and personal. I automate where I can, but I always add personal touches based on our session together. Think of your follow-up system as a safety net for your clients. It catches them before they fall too far off track, and it helps them maintain the momentum that we created in that first session. Remember, that first paid session isn't just about technical aspects of financial coaching. It's about making your client feel seen, heard, and capable of change. When you create an experience that combines practical value with emotional support, you're giving them hope and confidence for their future and their future work with you. In the next episode, we are going to talk about what it looks like to bring a new team member on board so that you can let go of some of those tasks that you don't love, so that you can focus on things like perfecting these discovery calls. I'll give you step-by-step instructions on how to onboard your new hire. Of course, Coach, change doesn't happen without action. Here are some things I'd love you to add to your CEO time in the next week. Number 1, review your session structure. Number 2, write out your warm welcome script. 3, create your value blocks timeline. And then 4, draft your follow-up email templates. I will see you next week, Coach. That's all for today. If you're ready to grow your own financial coaching business, head over to financialcoachacademy.com for helpful resources and tools. If this episode helped you, hit subscribe and leave us a review. I'll see you next week.